Welcome to J Hart Model Works. In this video, I'm going to show you how I use flocking to give my model cars a realistic carpeting effect and bring my interior up a notch with a little more detail. I'm Justin, and welcome to my workbench. Alright, before we begin, I want to quickly go over all the materials that we're going to need. So we're going to start with a sheet of paper. What I like to do is take my paper, fold it in half long ways, and then unfold it back out. And we're going to flock on top of this, and this is going to just make our cleanup a bit easier. We of course need parts to flock, which we are going to be flocking the floor pan of the XJ220. Now if you notice, there's a piece of tape in here. There's a floor mat in here that I've already painted a flat black, and I've just masked this off so that we don't get any flocking on this when we're doing our flocking. We're going to need a tea strainer. The guys, do not use your wife's tea strainer for this. You're going to end up having to explain to her why her tea tastes fuzzy. She's going to be upset. Nobody wants that. Go on Amazon.com, get yourself a tea strainer. These things are maybe $5 or $6, I would say. I don't remember exactly how much I spent, but I remember the last time I bought a tea strainer, I actually bought 3. So I've got spares for the house because we drink tea. Next, we're going to go through our paint brushes. I use 3. So this is a wide Tamiya brush. This is just going to let me get most of the area very quickly. I use a smaller, finer tip brush. This is actually this is a Winsor Newton Series 7. So this is my triple lot brush. But for the most part, I'm going to use this when I'm trying to get into small, tight areas, like this area through here. And this is an old tester's brush, like a synthetic hair tester's brush that I've just lobbed off the ends of the bristles and cut it real short, and this is going to be my cleanup brush. We're of course going to need flocking. Now I bought these 4 bags of flocking from the Model Car Garage probably 2 years ago, and I still have tons of flocking. A little goes a long ways. Of course it depends on how many kits you build a year. I do maybe 4 or 5 kits a year, so I don't, but like I said, I still have tons of this stuff. It's fairly cheap. The Model Car Garage. Now if you're in Europe, Scale Productions makes a flocking material. I believe Tom from the Scale Modeling channel uses it, and that's probably going to be more readily available over there. And finally, we're going to use some paint. Now I use enamel paints from Model Masters, and this is honestly probably the only time I use enamel paints. You can use Tamiya's Clear, X22 Clear. I've seen a lot of people use this. I think Tom from the Scale Modeling channel uses this. I've found that when I use the Tamiya acrylics, and I love Tamiya acrylics almost as much as I love their lacquer paints, but when I try to use the Tamiyas, if I don't just glob it in, it dries too quick and my flocking doesn't really adhere well. So I like to use the enamels because the enamels take much longer. Also, I keep a dedicated jar of paints for flocking. So if you are going to use the X22, I have used it in the past, and I've got another separate bottle of this X22 that is just for flocking. It's got bits of flock in it. Keeping a bottle specifically for flocking lets you care less about getting stuff in it. You know, you don't have to worry about, am I going to go and try to paint a part later and find this fluffy crud all in my parts. So let's get started. Alright, so first thing we want to do is load some flocking material into our T-strainer. So dump it in there. We want to take our paint, make sure we give it a good stir, get it nice and shaken up. You might take one of these Tamiya paint stirrers. I love these because you can just stir. Get it nice and stirred up. Make sure there's no clumps on the bottom, and then just wipe it on a towel and it's perfectly clean and ready to go. So we're going to take our wide brush and we're going to start on the side over here. I'm just going to dip this in, and I want to get the surface. I'm going to try not to go up the sides. Now, I'm not going to put anything too heavy down on where the seat goes. And you want to do this before this dries, because once the drying action is what holds the flocking down. When paint dries, it acts like glue. So you take our T-strainer, and this is going to act pretty much like a sieve, like when you're sifting flour. Just keep tapping it. Get a nice heavy coat, turn it around, make sure you get all the areas, get it covered real well. I usually go overboard and use more flocking than I need, but that's okay, because we'll just dump it out at the end. And you can gently tap on this with your finger, especially if you have gone heavy like I have. Just very gently tap this down. I am pressing zero pressure. I'm pretty much just barely touching the flocking when I'm tapping this. You don't want to smash it, you don't want to push on it, you're not putting pressure, you're just kind of tapping it down, making sure that as much of that material as possible gets in contact with the paint layer that you laid down. Once that's done, you might want to let that sit and dry for a second, or what we're going to do is move on to the other side. I've switched over to my smaller brush so I can get into that corner. It doesn't need to be thick. We just want a layer that's wet. You know, there's some flocking in there from when I did the other side. That doesn't really matter. Like I said, this is a dedicated bottle specifically for flocking, so I don't mind if some flocking gets in it. There being flocking down there already isn't going to cause me any problems. Now, doing this, a lot of times I will try to work around the seat positioning area and not flock there. But for this one, I just went ahead and did it. My seats are at a point where if I have a problem fitting them, which I'm pretty sure I won't, I'll just take and sand them down a little bit, maybe take a millimeter or so off the bottom of the seats, and that'll bring them back down where they need to be. So again, we're going to take our flocking material, in our tea strainer and just tap. You can shake it if you want, but I get better results from just doing this repeated back and forth tapping. Gently tap just to kind of make sure that we get good connection between the flocking material and that wet paint. And this flocking material is going to absorb some of that moisture, so it's going to dry a lot faster than an enamel paint normally would if you just brushed it on and left it there. And this side over here is probably already pretty much dry. So I'm going to turn this over and just tap the part onto our paper. Set this aside for a bit. We may have to use it again, we may not. Use my old lobbed off tester's brush. Try and scrape as much of that as I can get back onto there. I want to get in here into these nooks and crannies. Just give everything a nice good brush over. It's not going to be perfect, because what I'm going to do after this, once I know I'm done with the flocking and that it's the way I want it to look, I'm going to actually take this out, and what I'll do is I'll airbrush. I'll use my airbrush and just blow some air over the part. I airbrush in my garage, so what I will actually do is go out to the garage and I'll actually take my air compressor. I have one of those small air compressors from Master. I believe it's an AS186 style compressor. I'll just take the whole compressor and go to the outside of my garage so that when I blow this material off, when I blow this excess flocking off, it'll just blow outside and it won't be all over where I normally paint, so I won't have to worry about this being in the air when I go to paint something later. Maybe, you know, my next body I go to paint it, I'm not going to have fluff floating around and getting into my next paint job. So I take it outside from where I normally spray and just go from there. You don't want to go crazy with it, you know, maybe 10-15 psi, nothing crazy. Don't be, you know, 30 or 40 psi, you're going to blow the stuff off. And here's another secret that a lot of people will, they'll get in there and it'll be real thin and they'll be, oh, that looks horrible. Let's see if I can. So if you notice, it may be kind of hard to see due to the lighting, but right about there it's real thin. You can go back in and go over this again, just put a little bit more down there. Again, that's because we use a jar of paint specifically for flocking, so it doesn't matter that we're going to get flock in that paint. Come back over. Some guys think that this is a one and done type deal, and you know, if it doesn't come out perfectly the first time, then it's just hosed, and that's not necessarily the case. You can touch up, especially small areas. You can touch up. Nice heavy coat of flocking in there. Maybe add some more into my. Oh, there should be plenty in there, but we'll add some more in there just in case. You want to make sure you do get it fully covered though. You don't want wet paint visible, because when you dry, you're going to have a flat spot there. The one thing you do not want to do is blow. You're going to blow the stuff everywhere, and you won't be able to recover any of it. So, you gotta sneeze, gotta cough, turn away from your table. And so I will go and blow this off with the air compressor right after we clean this up. So I'm going to go ahead and clean real quick. So to clean up after this, which is why we've got the paper and why we folded that paper in half, set your brushes aside, set them in some cleaner. I'm horrible to my paint brushes. I use lacquer thinner, but I then go back afterwards and use some Master paintbrush cleaner to clean and recondition my brushes so that they're not quite as abused as just cleaning them in lacquer thinner. I'm going to get as much as you can out of your tea strainer. Since we've got a wet spot of some paint over here, I turned it around to keep that towards the back. Pinch this off at the front over here. Gently tap the back on the paper, get it all to go down. And that makes kind of a funnel. So you can just shake it. And recover as much of that flocking back as you can for your next use. As you see, we've used very little. This bag is still almost exactly where it was when we started. So I'm going to let this dry. And then once it is dry, I'm going to go ahead and blow this out with the airbrush, and I'll be back to give our finished results. Alright, here we are back from the airbrush. Went ahead and blew this at about 15 psi, just blowing out all the dust off of it, all the excess flocking material that I couldn't tap off. Also, because this is an enamel paint that I used for the substrate, I took a cotton bud with a bit of odorless mineral spirits, and I just went along the edges of the side walls to just get areas where I went a little heavy with the brush, got carried away, and I got some paint up here. Won't be noticed because the seat will be there, but that's fine. But you just kind of cleaned it up a little bit and gave it a nice cleaned up appearance. I think it came out pretty well. So let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider sharing it with your friends. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the little bell icon so you can be notified whenever I upload new content. Leave me a comment below to let me know how I'm doing, if there's a tip you'd like to share, or even let me know what topics you'd like to see in future videos. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.